fuck, man.
Huh? I said these low quality, low effort statements with nothing behind them are tactics. It's lack thereof. Yeah, they just don't, man. Well, I mean, we say that like Trump was memed into the presidency, right? That's a common phrase. And if 6'7" is the quality of meme that is gaining the attention of younger people, I don't know. Like I don't want to stoop to their level or something like that.
Yeah, like a general thing for like this has been the big problem with conservatives is we keep stepping into the left's framework and then trying to beat them at their own game within their framework.
Yeah.
You're never going to beat an opponent when you accept their terms. So, I mean, I see what you're saying. Like, okay, maybe we should engage in like polemics that younger people use, but the way that the left and the right have diverged, like with our communication styles, like just lean into that, just double down on what sort of the right likes. I mean, I think the admins, social media pages understand this. That's why you see like DHS posting these, aesthetic memes and these sorts of things because they understand like that's actually how you communicate to your base in an effective way, and they like that and they work on. I just don't think it'd be useful to like abandon our messaging and adopt the left's messaging to try to do it better than them. It just won't work. The conservatives have tried to do this many times. That's why they keep running like the most insane DEI candidates, and you're wondering why black people don't vote for them. That's not how this works.
We see it in the way that the Gavin Newsom counts, right? So they're doing their best to try to imitate Trump and be what he is, and it comes out that it's legitimate. And they could say, "Oh, we're making fun of him," right? And it's like, no, but you see, it doesn't have any kind of. It doesn't even compete because it's not that yeah, I also think that like J.D. Vance roughing up his self for Halloween is a way to sort of counter the fact that they're going to kill him. So, yeah, that's a different well, J.D.'s doing really well, but wasn't like that. That's not something like that. It's wasn't nice to something like that. I don't know which one is on. Maybe they should come back. If it doesn't come back, there's a better argument to have Trump's evidence.
Yeah, they're kind of like there's an activist perspective. And also, like I'm saying, there's a double draw. Whoever those two factions are against the problem.
Yeah. Just a quick follow-up. These propaganda campaigns that the left is doing are organic, where everybody just starts repeating the thing that they see gaining traction, then you think that it's kind of organized, pushed from the top down, and you're seeing marginally almost. I think that they're just seeing it gets a little traction and it gets once. Shit, right? It's like there's so much 30 seconds. I just want to say yes, Steve, we called he was a member of the community, and we had some good conversation with him in the afterguard during a couple of minutes. He was giving us the details, and it hurts to separate last one going. I'll also say, everybody who's listening, join the Discord, and maybe keep the conversation going. We got the afterguards after this, where we went for an hour or two, and all the players continue on the questions. So support me at the Discord community, support the names. And just for the record, Tyler Tabadians did have a full interview with Tyler Joe a month or two ago. And he said that he's going to be discussing the story in depth in a show tomorrow. So figure it out if you got time. Appreciate you guys, and I'll see you next time. This has been big fun. I'll just say that put it like this: the divide on the right is frustrating, and I think that by this time next year, the midterms, people will be more unified this is. But I would say this: how many people on the right are very dissatisfied with the general space because of drama over different, and nobody wants to talk about it publicly because nobody wants to be involved in that the right. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. Thanks for everybody. This The Supreme Court just rejected a long-shot effort to overturn the same-sex marriage, the so-called marriage for some sort of reason, ruling. The court turned away an appeal filed by Kim Davis. You guys remember her? A former county clerk in Kentucky who was sued after refusing to issue a marriage license to a gay couple. First of all, based in right like American patriot. Secondly, Washington, the Supreme Court ruled on Monday, turned away a long-shot attempt to overturn a landmark on 15. They didn't take the case. Yeah, exactly. So it's like they didn't decide. They didn't want to make it do it. Yeah, they didn't want to make a decision. Not taking up the case. Yeah.
Sounds pretty gay.
I agree with you. This is from NBC News, by the way. Without comment, the justices rejected an appeal brought by Kim Davis, a former county clerk in Kentucky, who was sued in 2015 for refusing to issue, quote, unquote, marriage licenses because of her opposition to same-sex. By the way, sex is censored with 2 asterisks in this context, but it is same S***, who knows what that means? Marriage based on her religious. I've never seen that before. That's on NBC News record. Yeah. I'm curious if the title does the exact same thing. So this is it's very, very strange, not a great day for the Supreme Court, but I'm curious what everyone else here has to say about this.
The politics of this is extremely fascinating, based on other rulings that the Supreme Court recently made, notably on overturning the Dobbs decision, overturning Roe v. Wade. Many onlookers and legal professionals assumed that following the logic that the court used in previous cases was going to strike something like this down had they taken the case up. But they strategically decided not to take the case up because I first assumed they didn't want to deal with the backlash of having to turn something like this that is generally popular with Americans. So, if they follow their textualist tinge of the Supreme Court right now, they might have had to overturn this to stay legally consistent, but have chosen to not take up the case. If you guys don't also know, the Supreme Court chooses what cases it takes up and has to make a decision on, or it doesn't have to make a decision on. I think the politics of this is fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully they're willing to take it up soon. I'm curious what you think about this, Shane. I know that you're like just a gigantic LGBTQ.
Coming from New York, yeah, of course. I wish they overturned it.
Huh?
It's the same. I feel the same way about this that I feel about not showing force, a strong force with the immigration stuff or the people breaking the law. This is something they should do. They should overturn it. I think it's an abomination.
Amen, brother.
Promoting people living in unrepentant sin, and I wish they would say, let's overturn it. I don't care about the optics.
And
I'm ready to change things.
And it's not just that; it's actually forcing all of us with our tax dollars to fund a system that says two men can be married,
Right.
which is a total fiction. They can't be. That's not what marriage means.
Yeah. Wow.
Well,
Where'd
what's
you go
also
to school?
interesting is that if there's one institution that shouldn't worry about optics, it's the Supreme Court, because it's one of the few places that you have lifelong membership. So it's interesting that if that's really the motivation is optics, it's interesting that they would care about optics. No, I think you need 4 votes in favor, if I'm not mistaken, in order to take up a case. It's not a majority, is it?
Isn't it the Chief Justice who decides what case they're taking? I'm not sure.
I honestly don't know. I'm speaking based upon ignorance on the subject. But there's some amount of voting that needs to happen.
Yeah, I think Thomas was one of them that voted for to take up the case. I forget who the other
I
one
just wonder
was.
who the ones weren't.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. Does it?
I think it was only 2 that said.
Does it
should take
say
it up.
anywhere? Is it published?
I'm sure you can look it up. Yeah. I don't know.
The guy justices of the Supreme Court decide which cases to take, with at least 4 justices needing to vote to grant a writ of notarial.
They got the majority, and they weren't able to get 4.
Referred to as the rule of 4. Well, allegedly, there's only 3 liberal justices on the court, so you would assume that the 6 so-called conservative justices voted not to take.
3 of them had a defect.
It might not even be optics. They might actually be scared for their lives after the crime. So,
I think that's a good one.
yes, which is ridiculous. And
As we are, these people who do this.
I would do, but they don't get as much judgment.
Yeah, because they should. It's the one. Well, by the way, you're right to be small question. So we arrested some of the people who like brought the record, but we see all the political violence that's occurring with people who have parents. I mean, like a massive mob. So if we does something like that, a lot of people there can get in trouble.
He's very clear. I think he's right.
So it's put on the sensation, and then in court, the judge was saying, "Well, I would just like your family to accept you."
I think it's also worth mentioning public opinion currently in the United States on the matter. So I'm reading right now from here about 6 in 10 adults express a positive view of the impact of same-sex marriage being legal, including 36% who say it is very beneficial, and roughly 4 in 10 have a negative view, 37%, with 19% saying it's very bad. So there is a supermajority in the country.
I mean, the Supreme Court shouldn't be motivated by opinion polls.
No, but if they continue to do things that are extremely unpopular, then they're legitimately seeking cases and they can get those down for progressive things.
They legitimacy would increase the
I disagree. Like, and they shouldn't, again, be swayed by the public, but I think their political realities just, they have to take into account. They shouldn't be able to talk politics, right? That's why they have these lifelong terms, but if they don't exist in a vacuum. This is the effect of that, which is a government too, and it should. But, we're actually, some of us in this room are out of touch generally with people. Let me stay out of the closet. I was like, a lot. And you get your hopes up. So generally, some of us might be a little bit out of touch with where the average American is. I don't know if this is totally playing politics. I don't know if the president told them maybe this isn't the right case to take up. And there have been rumors too that the president is extremely concerned about keeping the majority in the upcoming midterm. Because if you go to lose the majority right now, what is there? 3, 4, 5 seat majority to Republican? They're going to get the economy masses Republican. So if the Democrats were to gain the majority again, there would be endless investigations. The president would definitely be impeached again. So I think, you might be trying to hedge against that. That's why we're seeing him do the redistricting and other things.
Yeah. So I think you're right. It's possible that justices are trying to play politics. I have no idea. Again, obviously, it's not the point of a Supreme Court justice to play politics. I also understand this type of polarized landscape. I think I'm going to need to. And Shane, I think you're also correct that they could have been intimidated into deciding not to hear the case. But with what you mentioned about opinion polling on the matter, if those numbers are accurate, what it demonstrates is that the law is a teacher. Because remember, gay marriage, quote unquote, was not something that the public demanded. It was not something that was voted for. It was something that was forced onto us by the courts. Even in California, the bluest blue state, they could not get people to vote in favor of it. It was the California Supreme Court that decided that homosexual quote-unquote marriage existed and had to be respected in the state of California. And in such a limited time, with that legislative change that was forced on the public by the courts, the American people have largely changed their perspective on this. It can be changed back if the courts decide to reverse the decision. This is not permanent.
Well, they said the Roe v. Wade that it was settled law. That's right. Just to argue people constantly. So interview leftists, women's club people on the street, concerned about Roe v. Wade. Now it's talking about smoking. Oh, it's settled law. That's what you're saying. The Supreme Court just said this is settled law. Doesn't that mean anything to you? And they go, no. And, I guess the same logic can apply to the abortion decision. Despite it being settled law, some people would argue that the legality, it's not very textualist in nature and could be overturned. I do think they're taking politics into consideration. So listen, although they maybe shouldn't, I feel like it's viewing them too much in the back.
One more thing that I want to point out here, because Kim Davis got brought up, and that's such a throwback for she was made the target of a smear campaign by the media where rather than discussing whether she had the freedom as an American to not partake in the legitimizing of movements that she understood to be sinful, we instead had conversations about her moral character. And they kept saying, well, Kim Davis is divorced. Okay, well, sodomy is a sin that cries out to heaven for vengeance, and she's still allowed to oppose it, even if she has committed other sins in her life. The argument about Kim Davis is a perfect person in a moral guru we have to listen to. The argument was, does a person have to earn the right to conscientiously object to partaking in the legitimized lifestyle choices they understand to be disgusting and wrong? Do they have to earn by being up to your moral standards? Or are they allowed that freedom as Americans?
Look, you're not allowed to speak out against their cult. Their religion, their cult, wants this stuff to happen. So it's all of us involved. It's
There's one last tidbit I wanted to add on the gay marriage thing. Gay marriage
Just a little tidbit, a tiny bit, just a minute.
Come on, I just thought tidbit was a funny word to use. I didn't mean it that way. I think it's worth mentioning that gay men have become more prominent in the Republican Party now more than ever, both in the closet and out. And that becomes normalizing gay people, particularly for the party that is most predisposed to potentially be against gay people. It goes way more than that. Scott Messick is, I don't know. Well, he's publicly gay. He's older. Yeah, he has a pink house and he's married to a man.
He sleeps with a pink blanket.
I think lots of pink or that. There's a lot of these things ornament. There's a lot of high-ranking in the Trump administration and the Republican Party at large, and the Republican Party isn't nearly as anti-gay and against gay marriage.
Don't mess me up.
Despite there being a religious part of the party,
I also know there's a lot of gay conservatives who don't agree with gay. You actually oppose gay marriage.
So I think most of the gay men in the Republican Party support the Obama decision.
I think both. Obviously, there's some who are for it and there's others who don't.
I'm saying about everything, but I think writ large, the gay Republican men do support their. No, yeah, 90% of gay men. All the gay men that I've spoken to, all gay, that's in the party, which there are a lot of.
There's a lot of pink houses.
There's a ton of those. Again, and you can look up.
Baby, I just dominated that race.
Watch out, we'll swing on you. You talk shit people in front of Bess and
I know, I
don't
know.
That was fine.
That's fine.
That is to say, they're very influential.
I don't know if they just maybe completed it on their end because they had to change the order, or maybe it's
becoming
outside
more
and go
normalized in the party.
So
I think going the opposite direction.
Are Christians in the Republican Party supposed to accept that then just because they're on?
I think a lot of these
outside
gay
of
guys
voting?
are so-called Christians, and whether or not you want to accept them as Christians.
Well, I don't. Yeah, I know Peter
guys-
Thiel calls himself a Christian, but he's an unrepentant sinner married to a gay man.
Well, you sin. Are you still
Yeah,
a Christian?
we're all born sinners.
Well, there
Okay,
is so
but there's a
still be
difference.
I'm not living in
There's a
unrepentant
question.
sin. Married to a man.
I don't know. I mean, you know more about your sins than I do, and I'm not here to tell people they are or aren't Christian based on their.
We're all
Well,
flawed.
no, but there's actually an important distinction here. Like, it is also a sin to deny the divinity of Jesus Christ. You wouldn't say, well, you can't tell that person they're not Christian because they deny the divinity of Jesus Christ, because you also sin. Like, if you have chosen to base your beliefs around something explicitly anti-Christian, and you've said what the church, what tradition, what scripture explicitly defines as a sin isn't a sin, and I'm not allowed to do it, and I am allowed to do it, is different for being a believing Christian who sometimes makes mistakes.
Yeah, but Seamus, for example, that's like you're stripping away many people of their religious,
No, I'm not. Their decision.
That's bad theology.
Catholics, as I understand, are pro-choice. And
Those are not practicing Catholics.
so you'd say more
They're
than half
not
of the
practicing
people who
Catholics.
call themselves Catholic aren't?
Certainly.
That's Hollywood
They
Catholic.
baptized Catholics, they're not practicing Catholic. But this is
Are
not
you
just
the Pope,
me.
though? Like, are you the one who's able to
and because,
decide this?
And because I'm the Pope, no, I'm not allowed to decide this because I'm not the Pope. I have to follow what the church has already said. And what the church has already said is there's certain standards you have to meet in order to be considered a practicing Catholic. And one of them is you have to give full assent to Catholic teaching, including the teachings on abortion. Ergo, no, they literally are not practicing Catholics by definition.
So
I would be playing God and playing Pope, right? If I were to say, no, you can be Catholic, you can be a practicing Catholic, even if you explicitly reject church teaching.
So I'm a Jew, so I'll hold my tongue only a little bit when talking on these Catholic issues. As I understand, the Pope recognizes these people as Catholics.
The Pope does not recognize them as practicing Catholics, and the magisterium of the church does not recognize them as practicing Catholics.
The
They're
Pope
not
doesn't recognize
practicing
people who are
Catholics.
pro-choice
They
as
can be-
Catholics,
They are not.
we're deciphering
The Pope
between
has
Catholic and.
The Pope has not issued the Pope has not issued a statement overturning church teaching that practicing Catholics have to give assent to Catholic teaching. The Pope has not done that.
Okay, so
Those people aren't Catholic.
Okay.
Anyway, we can move on from this topic because otherwise, well, yeah, we can move on.
I'll do another hour.
What's that?
We do another hour.
I think the gay stuff is all of that is to say the gay stuff's becoming more normalized in the Republican Party, despite.
I think aren't there a lot of graphs that show that like support for gay marriage is declining?
Yes, and there's a revival in Christianity right now
Yeah,
as
and there's
well.
a revival in Christianity. So I think
I think anything that you do to shrink the party is probably bad for the party and for the United States, because if you allow the Democrats to get back into power, they're going to start throwing conservatives in jail. If Christians have
self-preservation.
if they have a desire for self-preservation, you do not want Democrats back in power. The Democrats call Christians Christian nationalists. They associate Christians with Nazis. They associate Christians with evil, and they will use the government to oppress you.
My self-preservation is rooted in eternity, outside of the material world.
You are welcome to have that opinion.
And I'm not going to sacrifice my beliefs to help the party, the material world. I can't. I'm not going to vote for someone who is also antithetical to my beliefs, whether it's right.
That's fine to have that opinion, but if you do, then you are going to send people that don't agree with that into the hands of the Democrats and into the hands of people that will destroy the country.
My thing is, though, I think we're screwed on either side right now. And one of the things I have, the problem with Trump is the total embrace of Silicon Valley, which is anti-human and anti-Christian. And they're building out a dystopia that is shackling people to the material world. So I right now, I feel like they're both kind of selling out humanity and the middle class for sure.
And by the way, Phil, even though I disagree, I understand your argument from strategy. I understand coming at it from a place of pragmatism. A, I agree with Shane, but and B, then it becomes a question of how much do we allow the party to change and lose its identity for the sake of getting outside people in? Because at some point you go, well, what are we fighting for? What values do we have?
There has always been a part of the of the right that was based not on religious principles. There has always been a wing, or whatever you want to call it, of the Republican Party that was based on economics and not based on social conservatism. And I think that it is important to keep the big tent, because look, if you're going to start saying you are a sinner, so you're not welcome in my party, you're going.
That's what I'm saying.
No, yeah, that's not the
I
argument.
believe we're all born sinners.
It sounds a lot like it. because it's going to start saying, okay, if you're a pro-choice conservative or a pro-choice Republican, you can't be here. If you're a gay Republican, you can't be here. These things will whittle away at support on the right. That is not something that the right can afford.
What we're
Right now,
saying
the right is largely made up of Democrats. Look at Donald Trump, RFK, Tulsi Gabbard. All these people are Democrats that are basically not far left enough. Right now, we have a big tent Republican Party, and it's fine if you don't have to agree. But I don't think that saying, look, we need to kick out people or we need to stop aligning with the big tent party because we are.
So then, by the time it's over, she'll be probably sleeping, and then maybe we can serve some people.